Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to do another football breakdown here with Zach Powell, the Lock Haven Express, for the Express area football. Let's kind of get into it here with Williamsport and Central Mountain last week. Williamsport with a 36-17 win, but Central Mountain, they did score 14 in there in the fourth quarter to get things closer. It seems like Central Mountain week by week is getting a little better with their offense and kind of getting some things going here early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that, a couple weeks ago, that it would, Coach Travis Thompson talked about Central Mountain needing that time to adjust and, reframe, I guess, Central Mountain football, especially after losing their seniors. And they're starting to do that a little bit. You can see game by game, they have to get comfortable with each other. They're learning the opponent on the fly, right? But they're also learning themselves on the fly and how to play. So, yeah, had a field goal early on there to get 3 points and then scored 14 in the fourth quarter there. Looks like Hunter Hoy scored, touchdown, stuff like that, and is passing the ball and is looking well. Also rushing, picking up some rushing yards as well. So yeah, it looks like Central Mountain's doing very well. Starting to finally get its feet under itself a little bit, and I think that'll help them this week, especially heading into week 4.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, speaking of Hunter Hoy, he did have 68 rushing yards and a touchdown, and Cole Corman with 51 rushing. It seems like those two are kind of getting the bulk of some of the carries, and it seems that they're kind of trying to spark that running game and just kind of get them kind of going, so they're not just a one-dimensional with just passing.
Yeah, and that's been their bread and butter over the last couple of years, right? Was toss the ball over to Rocco, whether it's toss the ball over to Rocco Serafini and let him eat up some yards there. But now that he is gone, the Wildcats have had to reinvent themselves a little bit. So Hunter Hoy's passing the ball a little bit. He's getting comfortable. He wasn't on the field at quarterback last year. Tom Sprague was. So he's getting himself comfortable a little bit, and he's also being able to pick up some rushing yards. I think that, like you talked about, diversifies that offense a little bit. It helps them pick up some chunk yards. And in addition, I think they have Cole Corman, they have Cooper Bodorf, two backs that can kind of feed off of each other, that can kind of get the ball in addition to what Hunter Hoy is doing. So I think once the Wildcats continue to diversify their offense and really get it down pat, I think that is what's really going to help them.
Mm-hmm. Central, they are winless, but they head to Selinsgrove this week for week 4. What do you think is the main thing Central Mountain has to do in this one to stay close with Selinsgrove and possibly get a win out of this?
Yeah, I think for Central Mountain is getting its offense going early. Mm-hmm. For one, its offense has got to get going early. Those 14 fourth quarter points are good points in the game, right? It looks good on the final score, but if they do that earlier in the game, maybe they put Williamsport in a little bit of a rut, a little bit of a hole there, and forced to issue, so to speak. But I think they've got to get going early. It's a road game at Selinsgrove. The crowd can be a little tough. I know they have a rowdy student section, so they're gonna have to get going early, find their offense, find some momentum, and then of course as well the defense, right? The defense has got to get going, has got to make stops. You give up 36 points to Williamsport. You've given up 2 40-point games already. That's tough. It's tough to win ball games like that, let alone staying in them. So I think getting a fast start, getting your feet under you will certainly help them.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, I think defensively, like you mentioned, I think the key will have to be to try to limit Selinsgrove's offense, because Selinsgrove, they can put the points up, they can move the ball. So if they can do that well and kind of limit Selinsgrove, they give themselves a shot to at least stay in this.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm turning Jersey Shore this past week, a 55-21 win over Selinsgrove. I think all of us kind of thought that would be a lot closer given how those two have played in the past, but Jersey Shore just running their offense like they have. One thing though, they did have a moment of silence before the game for Max Angle, who passed last year in the game after that game with Selinsgrove. I thought that was nice that they kind of honored him before the game and had that tribute.
Yeah, definitely. That was huge for Jersey Shore to do. Talking to Coach Tom Gravish after the game, he noted that he's not lost. He's not lost in the community at all, and that the Engel family is still very much in contact with the Jersey Shore football community. Dad still wishes the team good luck every week, and the mom is still baking cookies for the team and stuff like that for team meals. So it's nice that they still incorporate the Engel family. They know how much heartbreak that felt last year, and it was important that it was a 1 year to date from that against the same Seals team at Selinsgrove. And so yeah, and it turned out to be an important factor in the game as well to help them win this one.
Yeah, you wrote a really nice column about that. So if you didn't pick up the Express for Tuesday's edition, definitely grab that. Great column about Angle and how he's not lost in the community. Bulldogs, they led 35-7 at the half. do you feel like that was a little bit surprising given how close these two have always played?
Yeah. I mean, the history of it is these games are always tight, right? I mean, last year, but before the ankle injury and he went down with the head injury, it was 21-21, and Coach Gravish talked about that after the game, after this one, that they didn't want it to be that close, where they had this big 35-7 halftime lead, and they talked about that coming out in the third quarter. Guys, we can't give this up. We can't give up this lead, and so they didn't. And usually Selinsgrove, does play Jersey Shore tough, but I think Jersey Shore really just found its offensive groove now. For the first time here in week 3. First couple weeks, they were different spurts that they were playing in, but now it was more of bang, bang, bang. Just 2 full quarters of the first half, just playing some great football offensively.
A reporter who was at that game for another paper mentioned to Chris Massey that he thinks the Jersey Shore's offense is running an even faster no huddle than they have already, which is kind of hard to imagine because they already run it at a lightning fast pace. But I mean, they put up 559 yards of offense, 328 in the air. It's just it's so hard to just limit that offense because they can move, they can pass the ball, they can run the ball. They're going as fast as they possibly can too, and they just wear down defenses.
Yeah, and I honestly would agree with that, and add this point to the fact that Elijah Jordan having experience at running back last year helps a ton. You can't take away from what Jaron Loomis was able to do last year, but Loomis was never a running back, and so Elijah Jordan having that running back experience, sometimes he's just been taken off. He reads the defense and he makes that first or second read and he's taken off, and so he puts a lot of pressure and helps to open up the Jersey Shore offense on top of that no huddle offense going. And for a reporter like me trying to take stats and other reporters, it's tough trying to add up all the yards and the next play is already going. But I think that to your point that the offense is much faster and that slows down the other team's defense because they're worn out. They're trying to figure things out, and it becomes mentally tough on the other teams, and that's how Jersey Shore is able to run out and get those leads. You have a 20 or 30 yard pass play where Jordan's finding an Evan Snyder or other receivers, or he's taking off for 12 or 14 yard gain, and all of a sudden the offense and defensive lines have to get set. Jersey Shore's offensive line is ready to get set, but Selinsgrove's still scrambling and trying to figure things out, and that's a big part of it.
This week the Bulldogs, they host Shamokin, both are 3-0. I think one thing to take away from this coming up here, Shamokin's they've given up just 13 points so far this year. Obviously, Jersey Shore's putting up video game type numbers. So it's one of those, something's going to break, and I think Shamokin's defense is going to be in for a tough one to try to slow Jersey Shore down. Yeah,
and like I mentioned before, Jersey Shore's offense is finally finding its groove, right? Elijah Jordan is connected with 3 different receivers for 3 touchdowns, so he's finding his groove. His rushing yards are speak for themselves, and so Shamokin's going to definitely have their hands full. It's a third straight home game for Jersey Shore, so the Bulldog fans are going to be loud and proud and packing Thompson Street Stadium. So Shamokin is definitely going to have their hands full, and it doesn't help when Jersey Shore's defense is just as tenacious as it's been already.
Yeah, exactly. Bald Eagle area with a big 49-7 win over Penns Valley this past week. Carson Nagel with just a ridiculous performance, 25 for 35, 431 passing yards. He's just hit. I mean, we've talked about, I think, every week about how great of a quarterback he is, but he really does just take that team and just kind of will them to wins and stuff with his arm.
Yeah, I mean, he's just incredible, right? I mean, he's a Division II, really Division I, prospect, athlete for a reason. His accuracy is important, right? Any quarterback can sling the ball, right, and not hit their receivers, but he's taken the notion. He knows the playbook. He knows where his guys are supposed to be, and he's gotten his guys, to be where they're supposed to be, and I think that's a huge part of it. And teams know that. I'm sure they know that, but he constantly finds ways to get better, right? When he's fleshed out the pocket, when the pocket collapses and he needs to find ways to get to his receivers, right? He's doing that. I can see he's trying to start rushing as well, when he's being fleshed out the pocket. So there are different ways that he's also trying to adjust his game, but it's just been incredible the way he's been able to navigate, especially being a 4-year quarterback and just grow and make strides over the 4 years. It's definitely showing, especially this year, after the senior loss that they've had last year.
That game against Penns Valley, Colin Cunningham, 8 catches for 127. It seems like he's kind of turning into an early favor as a receiver for Nagel.
Yeah, definitely. I think, week 2 we referenced, who would be his early receiver to go to. I think Colin Cunningham kind of is one of the guys that Nagel looks at, like Cale Burns last year. Burns led the team in touchdowns and always on the big 30 or 40-yard connections. That was Nagel to Burns in those scenarios, and they would finish it off with Cameron Dubb. So I think that's the same scenario and look that they're looking at.
Yep, exactly.
And so I think that's what they have to continue to build off of, and the other receivers will in turn be open as Nagel continues to connect with Cunningham, just because they're going to try to take Cunningham away and his ability and his experience, and so other receivers will be open, and that also opens up the run game. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do this Friday.
An underrated stat I think was BEA's defense. They only gave up 8 rushing yards and 129 passing, so they played really well, limiting Penns Valley, not letting them get any sort of momentum going. And I think when you have a defense that can back up your offense, that's always a good combination when you're winning games.
Yeah, and I think they picked up 2 or 3 sacks as well. So where you can get to the quarterback and you can make those tackles for loss, and you're shutting, you're forcing opponents to go 3 and out. Penns Valley's definitely having a down year. They had some seniors that graduated last year as well that are a big part of their offense. But this was certainly Bald Eagles' game. This was certainly Bald Eagles' game on both sides of the football. So it'll be interesting to see if they can continue that momentum going into this week and not be too high after a big 40-point win like that.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. BEA, they go to Tyrone this week, taking in a 2-game win streak. Tyrone's 1-2, but if you're BEA, you don't want to overlook them and think, okay, it's a 1-2 team, this is going to be an easy game, because then you fall into that trap where now all of a sudden you could be 2-2 going into week 5.
Yeah, and they look good. Looking at their stats, they look like a team that can put together some wins. They have a senior quarterback, who can play, in Ashton Walk, and they have a running back that can also rush the ball. So I think he averages about 68 yards per game. So yeah, they can play football a little bit, and I think they can give Bald Eagle some problems with their balanced attack. I think it'll be a quarterback kind of duel, a battle there between Nagel and their quarterback of Tyrone. So it'll be interesting to see which defense comes up with the stops. If Tyrone can get to Nagel enough and make him uncomfortable, and then shut down receivers in secondary, or if Nagel can thrive and then get his defense to shut down and make some plays.
Yep. Bellefonte with a 41-7 loss this past week to Bishop Guilfoyle. Bishop Guilfoyle, a solid team. They scored 21 in the first, 20 in the second, led 41-0 at the half. If you're Bellefonte, you have to look at the positives from that game that you can kind of build off of, because obviously it's a tough lopsided loss, and you started 2-0, but what can they kind of take from that loss and kind of build off?
Yeah, I think the fact that they just kept playing. In other games, I think they would have just taken the shutout loss and said, okay, we're gonna pack up the bus and head back to Bellefonte. But they stayed in it. They scored points in the fourth quarter. It looks like Liam Halterman continued playing the football that he's been playing in the first 2 weeks. Yep. And that was a good sighting. And Ashton Howell looked like he picked up some rushing yards there as well in the fourth quarter. So I think that's what they have to pick up off of, is that fourth quarter where they did score a touchdown. I know the first three quarters were just really tough for them. Just putting stringing some offense together, and the defense was tough just because Bishop Guilfoyle is a great team. They shut out Bald Eagle area in week 1. They're just rolling. They're rolling. They have a lot of experience that returned. And so, yeah, they're definitely going to be one of the Laurel Highlands top teams. And so that is clear. I think what Bellefonte needs to do this week is to not hang their heads on that, to continue going back to that, week 1, week 2 football that they played. Yep. And Bellefonte can say, hey, guys, we're 2-1. We're okay. We're not 0-3. We're not 1-2. We're still over 500.
Exactly.
And that's a great sign for Bellefonte if they can use that.
Yep, exactly. They have to go. They're going up against Clearfield this week. Clearfield's 3-0, and they're averaging about 10 points a game defensively. So Bellefonte and I think Bellefonte they're going to have a tough task, obviously, this week in trying to get that offense going against a defense which is playing very, very well this year. Absolutely.
I mean, they're undefeated for a reason. Again, they have a great balanced pass run attack, but their rush attack, I believe, is just ridiculous. Their numbers have been crazy. I believe they rush for over 300 yards per game. Yeah. And so that's going to be a handful for Bellefonte's defense to stop. I think. last week's loss to Bishop Guilfoyle should have been a warm-up, so to speak, for this week's rush attack.
Yep.
Last week's game plan was a little bit different, where you're prepping for a passing quarterback, a great senior quarterback for the Marauders, but this week is you're preparing for the rush attack. But either way, I think that should help the line, but the secondary will certainly have to be stepping up as well. So defense will be the name of the game if they want to win. I think Bellefonte can find ways to make plays and keep themselves in the game. But what's really going to help them is if the defense can play well from start to finish.
Last week Bucktail was off, had a bye week there, but they have Otto Eldred this week, and I think for Bucktail, I think it also going to come down to how well does Brody Pence play, because the offense and the team, it kind of runs through him, and he's shown he's a leader for this team.
Yeah, he's definitely shown he's a leader for the team. Hopefully that 1 week off was a great week to just practice, right? Practice, fill out the offense, use each other to kind of grow, and use that, again, just to kind of like Bellefonte did in the fourth quarter, the second half against Coudersport a couple weeks ago, where they scored 20 second half points. Yep. You go on the road to Otto Eldred, which is going to be, a game where they have their work cut out for them for sure. Otto Eldred is certainly a great team, but just using that extra practice time, I think, as a boost to come out and say, hey guys, we're well rested. We should know our playbook. We should be ready to go. Yeah. Let's use the momentum that we used 2 weeks ago and pick up where we left off.
Yeah, I think that's going to be beneficial for them too. That having that week off to honestly, Bucktail, I think they only have 17 on the roster, so you have a real small roster. Yeah. You don't really have any space for any sort of injuries, because that's going to hurt your team. So that it gives them a week to rest if they were banged up a little bit and to move forward. So that's going to be definitely beneficial.
Definitely. It will be huge.
Yep.
It will be huge.
Lock Haven University started their season week 1 here with a 31-9 win over Glenville State on the road. Big win for Lock Haven, open the season and kind of build off last year, that confidence they had last year to start the year on a positive foot.
Yeah, I mean, a big win on the road. You score 31 points, right? You give up, I think they give up a safety to end it. It probably could have been 31-7 there. Yep. But and big shout out to our LHU football reporter, Ryan Stace, who's also an LHU student. Really describes LHU football as, a dominant run team on offense. Yep. And their defense, which, we weren't really sure about coming into the season just because of the transfers that they have and the loss of linebacker and Penn State transfer Cody Romano, who graduated. We weren't sure how the secondary was going to look, how the defensive line was going to look, but they looked sharp. Holding a team in the season opener that is a 500 level team last year in Glenville State, holding them to just 9 points is huge. It's huge, and I think doing that on the road is something that is going to give Lock Haven a lot of confidence this week. They move into playing IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which will be a tough task. They're one of the top teams, in the PSAC, and they get them at home. It's a night game. It's the home opener. I think it will be an electric crowd, but I think Lock Haven is going to be feeding off of that week 1 win for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, if they can, if Lock Haven can beat Indiana and move to 2-0, I think that'd be a huge statement for Lock Haven against a tough IUP team to go 2-0, open the year that way, and kind of show, hey, last year wasn't a fluke. We're here to play. We're here to win games.
Yeah, and I think that's been the biggest goal for Coach Dan Maroney and Lock Haven is to say, hey, that last year wasn't a fluke. We want to have a winning season. I know Coach Maroney, that was his number one goal ahead of the season. Is last year he wanted to be over 500. He wanted to have a winning season. Now he said we were close up to the last game to having a winning season. Yep. We don't even want to put ourselves in that position. We want to say, we want to have a winning season this year and let people know that Lock Haven football is back and put the rest of the PSAC on notice. I think if they can do that if teams can come in saying, guys, we have to work for this win, this is going to be an important game. We're not just going to slide past Lock Haven. I think that'll be another big step for the Bald Eagles. So we will see. They play at 6 p.m. on Saturday, which would be a great game after all the high school football's done and everything. So if people in Lock Haven can run down to check out the Bald Eagles, and I think they're putting on something special. Their quarterback's playing really well, and like I said, just a dominant rushing game to replace Chris Collier after graduating. So that's also a big thing to note.
Yeah, I was going to kind of touch on that. KJ Howard, 21 carries, 154 and a touchdown, averaging 7.3 yards rushing. I mean, it's just a 1-game sample size, obviously, but I think that's great for them that they have someone kind of right out of the gate putting up those numbers and kind of replacing Chris Collier, who ended up going with the Baltimore Ravens on their practice squad. So that's big to have that running game still kind of continuing to build off last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got to be a staple. I mean, KJ Howard is just, coming in already making an impact this huge. And I think it helps, it helps Lock Haven kind of solidify, who they want to be on offense, what Lock Haven football is. As I think a big part of Lock Haven football, too, is the transfers. That was a big question coming in is how are these transfers going to gel that are coming from a lot of different schools, from the Southeast, from the Midwest, all these different places coming to a Division II PSAC school to play football for a winning program. But I think that is starting to help Lock Haven football just because in terms of, we want to win. These are transfers that are coming in that didn't get as much playing time as they thought they would at their previous schools. And so they're coming to turn around a school already having experience, already having just a little bit of playing time and practice time under their belt, and just having to learn Coach Marooney's system and what Lock Haven football is about. So I think it'll be a fun year for sure, and this will be an interesting test for Lock Haven.
Definitely. That'll wrap us up here for week 4 for football for the Express. Zach, you'll be at Central Mountains game against Selinsgrove, so make sure give Zach a follow at Real Zach Powell on Twitter, and we'll be back next week to break down more football.